Alright, so this is going to be a somewhat quick video because this is a fully rebuilt working chassis. I just wanted to talk about some of the troubleshooting I did to get it working, because I have another one of these ready to go that will do the full testing on and repair and all that if it needs it. So that'll be done in that one. But this will be just a quick, I believe this will be part 6 if I'm not mistaken. I think so. We'll find out. But this is fully repaired, and it's going to be a quick video talking about what I did and what I found and showing it in working condition after I talk about it. But the other one that I have here will be the full video of the full going through and testing and repairing if need be, that kind of thing. So that being said, this I got this with the corresponding tube from a friend who had this in his garage for I think 2 or 3 years just sitting there. And this was given to him as well, so he had no problem just giving it to me, because he was getting rid of some stuff and it was taking up space and he wasn't going to use it. So he said, hey, you want it? I said, sure. So I got it. Now, it was unknown condition because he didn't know if it worked from the person he got it from, and a whole long story behind that. But I did know it was missing the remote board harness and the remote board. So I found an extra remote board harness in my stash of stuff, but I did not have a board. So I actually got this from Paradise Arcade Shop, and it works great for what it is. So if you're missing a remote board, check out Paradise Arcade Shop. And they've got pretty much all the remote boards that have chassis with remote boards. So after that was done, I went ahead and hooked everything up on the tube and fired it up. And for about 3 seconds, nothing happened. It was just dead. And then all of a sudden, boom! This capacitor right here, the top of it opened up like a geyser and went shoo, and it shot boiling electrolyte up to almost my ceiling for about a good 30 seconds, like a volcano erupting or a geyser. Just psh. I've never seen that in all my years. It went from you know, room temperature to boiling in about 3 seconds, and then kaboom. And after I let the house clear out, I turned it over and I found out the reason. The underside of this was just an absolute complete horror show. Somebody tried to do a cap kit on this, and they actually lifted almost every single trace on every single capacitor. It was just a nightmare. So I'm not surprised what happened. So it actually took me quite a while to get this into functioning order. There was a lot more wrong with it than just the caps, but it was just a nightmare. And you can see here, I had to put a trace across here, a trace across here, or I'm sorry, a jumper across the trace. These pads were lifted, these pads were lifted. All of this was lifted, that was lifted, this was lifted. All this, just almost every single pad that had a capacitor going to it was lifted. It's just, you know, there's 1, 2, I had to make a solder bridge across here, so we'll count that 1, 2, 3. There was a lifted trace here on the transistor that controls the power circuit, or part of the power circuit, so we'll count that 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 different pads that were all lifted, and it was just a whole nightmare. So that was just the start of this thing. Once I got that all fixed and powered it up, it was just ticking, you know, tick, 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 and, which is indicative of these chassis having a bad HOT. But the HOT was actually good. There was nothing wrong with it. So then we have to factor in the other items that might cause that. So let me get up my pointer here. I didn't have it ready. All right. So this little guy right here, U101, let's zoom in. This little guy right here is the SMS controller that is in charge of turning on the power circuit. And with the HOT actually reading good, the next step was to go to here and see what this was reading. So it was just tick, 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 you know. So we go to this, and we go to the corresponding pads, which are right here. And you'll see that there is, we'll call this pin 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pins 2 and 3 here were shorted together. And the reason I found that was because there's this pad here, this pad, these two pads, there's a capacitor that looks like this on those two pads, and there's one that looks just like this on these two pads. This one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So when I read across 3 and 4, it was shorted. So I removed the chip and put a chip in from a donor board, and I powered it up, and it was still ticking. However, this was not shorted anymore. So I fixed the short by replacing the chip, but so pins 2 and 3 were no longer shorted, but I still had the ticking. So at that point, I did some more troubleshooting, and I noticed that around that area, this capacitor was loose. I mean, when I was taking this chip out, I noticed, getting my fingers in here, that this capacitor was just all moving around wiggly, like it was only being held on by one pin. And sure enough, it was only being held on by one pin. And you can kind of see here, if it'll focus up, maybe not. That may have to do just like that, but you can see there's only one pin there, or one lead. There's this lead, this one's completely gone, and it was just completely corroded away, corroded right off. And so that was another major component. So this was open across those two pads. After I replaced that one, no joy, same exact problem. So I also noticed that this one was secure and this one was loose, but I thought, you know, hey, if this one was corroded, I'll bet you this one was corroded too. It turns out that it was secure. It wasn't moving, so you wouldn't think normally it had a broken leg, but it was held in and secure in place because of this glue that slop all over the B plus pot, which I've got the old one right here, and I'll explain why I have it out. But they slopped that glue on there, and then the glue was actually holding this in place. After I desoldered it and pulled it off, I noticed that one of the legs stayed in the via and did not come up with this. So but I lost my other one as an example. I lost my chip and my other capacitor. I think I threw them away doing the cleanup on the other videos. But so both of these capacitors, both of them had a rusted off leg completely off. And I replaced the chip, both of the capacitors, fired it up, and it was no longer ticking. So hey, success. But I still had no high voltage and no picture. What was happening was the tube would energize and then immediately de-energize, energize, de-energize, energize, de-energize over and over. And the B plus was fluctuating between like 30 volts to 60 volts up and down. I actually have a video and I'll show you exactly what it was doing right now. So there you can see what was happening. It was firing up and firing down and firing up and firing down. The B plus was fluctuating wildly. And it turns out that all of these resistors here, let's see here, R721, this one, R727, and R800. All three of these were all out of spec. Actually, I think R800 was completely open, and these two were way out of spec. I could have it backwards, but one of these two was completely open, and the other two were way out of spec. So I changed all three of these resistors, and bingo! Chassis fired up, beautiful, perfect picture, and it works perfect. So that's a little backstory on this. It had all of the capacitor solder pads were bad. That was problem one. Problem two was a shorted SMS controller. Problem three was both of these capacitors had a corroded leg. And problem four was all these resistors. One was completely open, the other two were way out of spec. And this is part of the power circuit as well. This, I want to mention this little transistor here. Let's see, I don't know which Q offhand. It's Q, hell, I don't know. It's a little transistor. And if this transistor is broken or missing or has a bad leg or shorted or whatever, the chassis will be 100% dead, nothing. So if you ever get a 7500 or 7400 or U2000 or U5000, you turn it on and it's completely, totally dead, the first thing I would check is to make sure this isn't broken. I think this actually will come off of here. Yeah, there you go. I would check to make sure that this transistor here is not broken, as far as legs being bent and broken off, which is very common, or that it's not shorted or open, because that will kill the entire chassis. That has to be functional for your chassis to work. And some of them have a little heat sink, some don't. But yeah, so if this is actually good, the next place to go would be your SMS controller, the U101, I think it was. Yeah, this guy there. So that's a little bit of backstory on this. Like I say, it's not going to be too long in this video. I just wanted to talk about the repairs I did in this, and then we'll fire it up and test it so you can see. I get the test pattern generator. Let's see, I wanted to mention, I don't have any PCBs that are medium res, so I have to use my test pattern generator, which will send a medium res signal. So you won't get actual gameplay of a game to see how the monitor looks, but we'll at least be able to fire it up and test to make sure it's working using the test pattern generator. So that's a bit of backstory on this. Bad resistors, a lot of bad solder joints and legs for capacitors, a bad U101 SMS controller, bad capacitors. And I also want to mention that the B+ on all these chassis are supposed to be 117 volts. So when I put this all back together and tested, the B+ was actually at 123, and I could not adjust it because, again, they glop all this glue on there. So I had to pull the original B+ pot off of there and put in one that I could adjust. So I have it adjusted to 119, which is what it's reading without a video signal. Once I send it a video signal from the signal generator, or test pattern generator, then it goes down to 117. So that's perfect, like 117.1. So don't worry about what the reading is. If you're missing a video signal, or just fire it up with no video signal, your reading is going to be a bit off. You want to test your B+ with a valid video signal with the monitor running on a video signal. So I want to put that out there. So yeah, it's all cleaned up and all fixed and repaired. Those were the issues with it. Maybe this will help you out if you have something similar going on in your situation. The remote, I'm sorry, the neck board. We all are very aware of the loose color transistors. Wells Gardner like to skimp on a lot of stuff, and they really seriously skimped on the heat sinks on these, and they get super hot, and over time they will actually completely lift all of the pads and traces off of the neck board. These are all 100% secure, like solid, rock solid. This is a low life chassis. It's not even any real scorch or burn marks on here. But a lot of these will have broken and lifted. The entire trace will be lifted from the color transistor all the way to the other transistor here, or all the way to the resistors on this end. The only real way to fix that is to just add jumper wires or jumper leads from component legs and stuff. But I'll get to that in the other videos and show maybe some of those are loose. I think, as a matter of fact, oh yeah, they're all loose on the other one. So I'll show that. But just want to point that out as well. That's really the only way you can fix these. But these are all nice and secure. So. Yeah, let's get it on the tube and get the test pattern generator hooked up, and we'll fire it up and you can see it in action. So one moment. Alright, got it all hooked up on the bench here. Everything's hooked up. We got our anode neck, yoke, and ground, and our video signal from our test pattern generator. So we got all of our 5. We're not going to blow anything up. And the test pattern generator, you can see here, has, I left it on. It has a standard versus medium toggle switch right here. And it's set to medium, so we should get a good test pattern if this works. And of course, your B+ adjustment test point is, there's a little test point right there in front of the capacitor. So we'll take our lead here and clip it on to there. Bring that down. All right, so there's that, and we're got our ground on the frame. So let's fire this up. Hopefully it comes online, and then we'll see what our voltage is for B+. Then we'll fire up our test pattern generator, and we'll see what happens. So here we go. Flip this on. Oh, you know what? I don't have power hooked up here. Let's plug in our power. If I can see it here. I can't. There we go. Okay. Monitor came on, so that's good at least. Let's go to voltage. And yeah, you can see 119 instead of 117, it's 119. And there's no image on the screen. So we'll flip on our test pattern generator and watch what happens. Boom. And we've got 116.9. So I actually kind of don't like that. The longer it actually stays on, it'll get a bit closer to 117. But it's a bit too low at the moment, so I am going up. See, there's 117. It's perfect at 117, but I'm going to adjust this B plus pot here if I can. Let's turn. Oh, I can't turn it here. Well, I guess I'll leave it alone. But because you can see it's climbing up 117.1. I was going to adjust it a bit higher to about 117.5, but it's fine. I mean, it's kind of nestled in there, and it's hard for me to get to. It's right there. But yeah, we got 117 for B plus. We've got our good test pattern. As a matter of fact, that's just the checkerboard. I can push this button here, and it'll cycle through. There's our color bars. Vertical, horizontal, grayscale, red, green, blue, grayscale. Then it does this thing. There's our convergence page. And yeah, perfect. The image is glorious. Those color bars, everything is perfect. So yeah, this has been fully repaired from just a nightmare of an explosion, and nothing worked, and all kinds of corroded parts and bad resistors and you name it. So this is back to working. This should last a good long while, and I'm glad it's up and running. So now we're 117.2, so that's fine. Yeah, so that's just a quick video on this one. I already repaired it, so I mentioned it before. I already have a video on this showing it working in an NFL Blitz, but I wanted to actually do a dedicated video showing what I've done and the general turnout of it as opposed to that one. Because I did not have a test pattern generator at the time, so that's why I made that video. But this one I wanted to make a bit more in-depth video to show the workings of the 7500. There's still a little bit more secrets I'm going to share on the next one. You can see I got my this is all this pile waiting to get worked on. And you can see a D9200 there. I may get to that, I may not, we'll see. So yeah, there's still a bunch left to do. So I wanted to show that off, and thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and stay tuned for the next one in the series.